product improvement. We are going to be talking about job adverts in general, some of the science and the art behind it, but we will also be just touching on some of the data points as well that we have access to. So thank you very much for joining us. You should have a window in the bottom right-hand corner that allows you to ask questions. So do feel free to ask questions as we go along. And I will leave some time at the end so you can ask any questions that you feel weren't answered in the presentation. So my name's James Digby. I'm the MD of Bright. We are a marketing agency for the education sector. We specialise in a variety of different organisations, schools, independent schools, trusts, exam boards, publications, a whole variety of different things. The common thing that everybody has is a drive towards educating people, supporting learners, and so on and so forth. And our services revolve around helping people to attract and engage the right kinds of people to their organisation. So that might be through marketing, it might be through recruitment campaigns, it might be through branding. It's a variety of different things, really. Depends on what those particular clients are struggling with. And it's quite rare that it's just one area. It might not just be recruitment of staff, but it might also be recruitment of students. So we help them to kind of get to the bottom of that with work such as perception research. So if you need any help with any of those areas, do let us know. So the clients that we work with are, say, very diverse, but all within the education sector. For those clients, we run about 5,000 different adverts each year. The reason I mention that is because that's what this data is based on that we'll be talking through. And we do work with a number of different marketing partners, so publications, for example, digital providers. So we take their data as well. We work with about 300 different partners. So a lot of data has gone into this. And if you need more information about that data, let me know, and I'll either provide it in the session today or I'll send it across to you separately. So I think that the agenda here has really been set up with a very kind of clear goal here. I'm very keen to get across a kind of concept of balancing the science element, which is about ranking higher, with the perhaps potentially more arty or creative side, let's call it creative, of engagement. So there's always a balance between that. But we'll do this in a structured way by going through benchmarking, understanding your data, what's good, what's bad. We'll look at some tips and some solutions for what that data shows you. And then we will go through LinkedIn, because it's really important you select the right job title. We'll talk about why that is. We'll talk about current career motivators at the moment. You can't write an engaging advert without understanding those career motivators. And then finally, we'll touch on diversity and inclusion. So benchmarking your data. If you're working with a company such as Bright, we can provide you with this data. So if you're a current client, just message me after this session and I'll send across your data. If you're not, you should be able to gather this from the different job boards that you use. You should be able to access any platforms that you're using to post your jobs. And when you first get this data, it's going to probably have lots of useless columns in it that will show things like impressions and categories and so on and so forth. But the key information that you need is 2 columns. So you're going to look at your data, your list of your jobs, maybe for the last 12 months would be a good area to look at, and look at the average number of views and the average number of apply clicks. Ideally, you would be aiming for between 100 to 150 views per advert, and you'd be looking for 12 to 22 apply clicks. So job advert views are not when your jobs come up in search results, but the number of times people have gone in to view that advert, and then your apply clicks are the number of times people have clicked that apply button. You may redirect them. They may go via an email address to submit a CV. They may complete an application form that you've uploaded on that platform, whatever it might be. So we use apply clicks because it is fairly standardized, but you may have a bit of a drop-off rate from people clicking that apply button to actually converting into an applicant. So we can tell from these figures what the percentage conversion rate, which is called in marketing, it's called the click-through rate. And a lot of people, a lot of agencies, a lot of job boards, they'll talk about this percentage conversion rate. So we know that within the education sector, 6 to 10% is good. The UK average is currently 10% across all sectors, and 10 to 15% is good to very good. So that's interesting to know if your data is fairly standard, but for the vast majority of people, they shouldn't really be basing the success of their adverts solely on that click-through rate. And the reason is because you might have an abnormally high number of advert views. So you might have, say, 300, 400 views. You might be converting at a low percentage point, but it might still be getting you enough apply clicks. So really understand why that percentage is what it is, and ideally break it down into support, academic, and leadership roles. Typically, you'll see a high number of views and a poor click-through rate for leadership roles. A lot of people just want to read the job advert, and potentially a lot of those candidates who don't want to go on to apply, they'll be coming backwards and forwards before they click apply. So when you break it down, you've got a good idea of how roles within your organization are performing. So let's just focus on job advert views and apply clicks. But do be aware that sometimes people talk about a percentage figure. Don't just allow them to get away with that. Ask them for that job advert view and that apply click data. So what do you do with that? Most people are going to have some level of low figures. So that can be 3 different combinations. It could be getting really good views, but very, very low apply clicks. It could be that you're getting low views and low apply clicks, or it could be that you're just getting low views, but the people that do click through, a good portion of them are clicking the apply button. We did have a typo in here. We've left it in for a good reason. So we've got incorrect job title twice in here. And the reason that we've left that in for a good reason is because it's by far the most important thing for improving your job adverts. An incorrect job title can lead to a number of different things. So let's take an example. If you've got a very exciting job, or you've got a job that's very generic, it can be either of those 2 extremes. People might be clicking on that job advert, but if you've got that incorrect job title, people are clicking to view that job advert. They're reading the job description, they're reading what the advert's about, and they're not clicking apply because it's not what they are expecting. We'll talk about how you can use LinkedIn to fix that issue very shortly. I think that SEO is a term that gets banded around quite a bit, but SEO is basically trying to align the terms that people are searching for with the terms that your content ranks for. So if somebody is searching for a job for a maths teacher, for example, and your job is called maths teacher, and throughout your advert you mentioned 3 or 4 times maths teacher, your job's going to rank quite highly. If your job is called maths teacher maternity cover, your job is going to typically rank lower using the algorithms on that job board because it's not an exact search, and people don't typically search for the keyword maternity cover. So for things like that, you might want to move those additional words into the body of the advert, because we know that the title is given more value in terms of ranking than any other element of your job advert. So SEO is search engine optimization. It's just optimizing your content to make the most of those algorithms that decide, do you come near the top, do you come near the middle, or do you go to the bottom? Low salary is quite an often one. Low salary and low levels of benefits. So people might be interested in the job role, they might be suitable for it, but when they click through, they don't apply because the salary is not great. Um, it might be that there's a lack of engaging content. This is quite a common one. I think when people have optimized their content, they're focused on keywords, but a lot of other people are doing that. Let's go back to the maths teacher example. Then they get a good number of views, but they can't convert those people because their content isn't engaging. And then just a final reminder that the incorrect job title is where you do need to start. Look at your job titles, see whether they're the kind of things that people are searching for, and check whether the job title aligns to what you're looking for. If people are coming across your job and they're clicking through to it, but they're not applying, that may well mean that you're using a title that doesn't align to the salary, the job role, the level of engagement for your advert, or you might be talking about the wrong things for what motivates people doing those jobs. Let's go to the other end of this table. So what does the data mean when you have a low number of views and higher click rates? This could just be because the job is niche. Where a job is niche, very few people are actually searching for it, but those that do find it, because it is a niche role, are more likely to click apply. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it might mean that you need to use a few more job boards than you're currently using. It might again be an issue of SEO, but rather than a strong SEO for incorrect words, you might just have poor SEO. The way to kind of look at this is view your job advert from the point of view of a simplified human approach, because that's what the algorithm's trying to mimic. So, for example, your first paragraph needs to talk about the job role. Then after that, talk about the team, then talk about you as a school or a business, and then talk about the overarching element if you're a trust or a big organization. The reason that's really important is because people know that build these platforms, they know that candidates typically rule themselves in or out on the job, and then they want to find out more about where they'll be working. So therefore, they've given more value to that initial content. High salary, it might be that your job isn't ranking particularly well, but those that do click on it are impressed with the salary. So that might be quite a good one, but it might still imply that you need to improve your ranking. It might just be that there's too much competition, especially if you're a school or a trust. This is a really big problem that everybody's suddenly recruiting for the same roles at the same time. And we see this across the board with role types. That data set of 5,000 plus job adverts, it shows really strange things sometimes. So, for example, independent schools, there might be a big movement in terms of the number of people that they recruit for groom roles. It might be that for trusts or schools across the board, there's suddenly an influx of roles for IT technician roles. So typically there are trends there, and typically that means that you're going to struggle when there's too much competition because everybody's competing for those top positions in the job boards. And then finally, one of the elements that can be difficult to overcome, and we'd be very happy to talk people through this if you do feel this is the issue, but it could be a weak employer brand. It could be that people don't click on your job adverts because of your reputation or because of your brand image. Does anybody have any questions at all about this and how you can take your data and look for solutions? Perfect. So once you know those problems, what could you actually be doing to overcome them? So lack of quality data. This is quite a simple one. We can provide you with that data. Typically, even if you're not a client, we're able to gather that data for you. So if that's something that you need help with, do let us know. SEO, start with looking at things from before you start researching SEO too deeply. Do just start with kind of reshuffling your advert. A lot of people talk about themselves as an organization first, move that further down, talk about the role, make sure there's enough information there to convert people. So it's got to be a case that people can rule themselves in or out of the job early on from the job advert. You might have a candidate pack there, but it's not quite as relevant as the advert content. It doesn't help with SEO, and it doesn't necessarily help convert people. And we know that because we know a lot of candidates are passive. 70% of the market are passive candidates. They're not actively looking for a job. and yeah, they're just not going to go into that level of detail of clicking on your website, viewing candidate pack. They'll very quickly make a decision from that initial first impression. The wrong job title. So the way that I work with this when clients kind of contact me would be to do a quick search on LinkedIn. So for example here, HR coordinator or HR advisor, I look at across the UK, are there more people using HR coordinator or more people using HR advisor? Then I filter that down using industry. So the industry for schools, for example, is primary and secondary. If you're an organization within the education sector, it'd just be education. But if you're a school, primary and secondary, I'll put that filter on. And then what that would show me is everybody in the UK using HR coordinator. And then I'd go to the same search and change it to HR advisor. Typically what I see is there's a difference between UK-wide and education sector job titles. And I would go through maybe 5 or 6 of those profiles for both roles, and it would give me an idea. What background do people with a HR coordinator title come from, and what background do people with a HR advisor title come from? Once you've done that, you might want to do that with the hiring manager just to show if you use this job title, these are the types of people you're going to attract, and you can prevent yourself having to test the market first of all, fail, and then start again. And then we talked about not making your job titles too long. So if your job title has maternity cover in, fixed term, part-time, any additional words in there, move those words to the fields within the body of the advert. You should see an automatic improvement. When we've been doing this with our clients across the board, so the 2 elements are typically focus on is the job title and the SEO. We typically see, so last year we saw a 30% improvement in their conversion rates. So it really does work, and it is a simple thing to do. Advert length, aim for about 500 words. Some job boards allow hyperlinks, others don't. If you're struggling because your advert's typically too long, TES, for example, allows hyperlinks. Link through, summarize your approach to compensation and benefits, and then link through to a benefits page. It'll reduce you just listing a load of benefits that don't really help your ranking or your engagement levels for your adverts. But 500 words is ideal. Lots of people are well below that within the education sector, and it doesn't do them any good. Benefits need to be more rounded in their approach. So don't talk about really simple things. I see people just trying to make the longest list possible. I've seen things like listing the fact that people have access to a library, free tea and coffee, teachers' pension schemes, and so on and so forth. A lot of these things are going to be expected, and you may even be putting people off by the fact that you feel that you need to talk about the fact that you offer free tea and coffee. If you feel that your benefits aren't quite as well-rounded as they need to be, focus more on the elements that people talk about when they're describing you as an organization to work for a friend. And I talk to a lot of people about this. One thing that often comes up that I wouldn't know if they didn't verbally tell me in a meeting is that community, is the people they work with. And those elements, which we're gonna come on to when we get to motivators, those elements are really, really important. I can't underestimate when I'm writing a job advert, I can't underestimate the importance of talking about things that other people will talk about. I think when I am on autopilot and I've written job adverts in the past, I find it very easy just to list the same things. But that's not going to help your engagement rate, and it's actually not going to help your ranking because you'll be using the same words that other people use. Make that opening paragraph as engaging as possible. It's not about your organization or business. It's what the job is. Why is that job exciting? Describe it in detail. Talk to the hiring manager. Talk to the person that's leaving. What are the elements that made a job really, really interesting? And then finally, benchmark your salary. You might not be able to do anything about your salary, but you need to know. You need to know, because when you get your data back from that job advert, you need to know if it was the salary that impacted it. If you're working with someone like Bright, let us know. We can help you benchmarking that so you don't have to pay for it. But it's really important because you can't often change the salary. I do see a lot of people not researching it. Those that do research it can be painful sometimes, but it helps them to understand. If they're recruiting from other sectors, that's typically going to mean that they're paying less than other people. So focus on the benefits. A good example of where people have maybe misunderstood that have been the fact that a lot of people, when they're recruiting, say, IT technicians or marketing professionals or HR professionals from other sectors, they don't talk about the fact that you're working on site. And the reason they talk about it is because they feel that they can't compete with it because a lot of people want to work from home. Research does show there's a sizable portion of the market that nobody talks about. They don't really talk about it in HR publications. They don't talk about it in forums. They don't talk about it in sessions like this. And there's a lot of people out there that just don't want to be sat at home. They want to be sat there working with colleagues. They want to be there in person. And that's a great selling point. You can focus on that. Does anybody have any questions about any of these solutions and tips that we've provided? Perfect. So we talked about LinkedIn to select a job title. Were there any questions at all about that and using that search function to understand how different job titles are used in the marketplace? Brilliant. So I've added this in because typically when we're talking about LinkedIn and technology, people will start to bring up, should I be using AI? It's a difficult question because at the moment, AI isn't easy to detect from a computer point of view. In the future, it's more than likely that there'll be some kind of watermark that allows platforms to understand when AI content is created. But the issue is that AI created job adverts, they don't rank well, they don't engage well because they're using a vast database of job adverts and they're reusing the same common words that are there. They're going to impact your engagement scores, they're going to impact your ranking. And one thing that I do think is very worrying is that a lot of research is showing that diversity and inclusion, how inclusive your adverts are, is significantly impacted when you're using things like ChatGPT to write your job adverts. My recommendation would be, if you're struggling with an advert, write something very simple and get AI to rewrite just that section, and it might give you enough of a boost or enough of creativity to say, oh, I really don't like that, or I like that, or I like these elements and don't like this. It might just help you improve your content, but never use it to completely rewrite your job advert. Career motivators are the most important thing that you could be looking at once you've kind of got the basics of your job adverts right. So what this shows is that anything over a score of 250 from the search results from career motivator research that we've run is a top motivator. And those top motivators are the opportunity to learn new things, the ability to contribute new ideas, the relationship people have with their managers, and the relationship with their colleagues. What is low in terms of those motivators are the modern working environment, so the environment that they're physically in, salary, and benefits. And the reason those things are low is because you might be paid slightly more somewhere, but if your relationship with your manager is poor, you're not supported. Your relationship with your colleagues is poor because you're doing the vast majority of your work. The vast majority of people feel it's just not worth it. The opportunity to learn new things is a great career motivator because if you can get that across in your job advert, typically people don't receive that where they work. So if you can stay with honesty that this is something you can provide, then you're going to improve those engagement rates. I think this is a really interesting piece of research. It really just showed that the things that might initially come across as important to people in a job advert, they're not long term. So you can still use these elements, these relationship pieces, the opportunity to learn new things, the level of responsibility that people have, the level of opportunity people have to contribute new ideas and have those ideas listened to. These things can be pulled together to overcome some issues you might have with a low salary or a low set of benefits. So, just an interesting point about gender decoder. I'm going to share this recording so that people got the ability to read in more detail what a gender decoder is. But in general, a gender decoder is an online platform that allows you to put your advert in, and from millions and millions of data points, it will say typically these words attract more of one gender than another gender. You can do these for a whole range of things. You can do it for neurodiversity, you can do it for ethnicity, you can do it for a variety of different things. But I'm just giving this as an example. A lot of job boards have these built in, and they typically focus on gender. They're the first ones that have been implemented, and they are interesting. Some people may not believe in them. Some people may see it as particularly weak science, but it is typically based on data and vast quantities of data. So the research from one of these gender decoders, for example, showed that male words that attracted more males than females, were typically things like lead, analyze, competitive. And the words that were attracting more females than males were typically support, responsible, understanding, dependable, committed. So this is in general. It's not to say that everybody is going to be the same. This is in general. One thing that the research did show is typically, again, not in every case, but typically men tend to look for reasons to rule themselves into applying for a job, and women tend to look for reasons to kind of rule themselves out of applying. And the one thing that you can do instantly to improve this, the biggest thing that you could do from my point of view, and it is subjective, is to consider how you can allow people to rule themselves in or out of the process from the job advert. Not just job advert attachments like job descriptions and candidate packs, but the job advert itself. And I really like putting the essential criteria in bullet points in that job advert so people can go through and they can see whether they meet the criteria or not. It helps to balance your rollout for a wide range of areas of diversity and inclusion, neurodiversity, gender, a wide range of areas. And it's such a simple thing to do. And then when you are considering how to implement some of these things, don't rule out the importance of candidate experience. It's very important to consider how people can give feedback on your recruitment process, your job adverts, because that's the audience you want to hear from. So do offer people the chance to give feedback. So thank you for listening to the presentation today. Does anybody have any questions at all that I might be able to answer, or maybe a job advert that you're struggling with that we could maybe talk through? Perfect. Well, thank you very much for attending today. We're going to follow up with the recording. So come back to me if you've got any questions, and I'll just stay online for a couple more minutes so you can ask any questions. But thank you very much.